Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Marvel Champions, the card game. This is for the big box Civil War. Now, this is an expansion as opposed to when they're usually called campaign sets. And that's because there's not a standard campaign where you play 5 interconnected scenarios in a row. Instead, you're playing against, there's 4 potential bosses to play against. So this is really cool. So if you're not familiar with Civil War in general, whether you haven't watched the Marvel MCU universes or you haven't read the comic books, the basic concept of the story is, um, bomb goes off, superheroes, some teen superheroes are fighting a supervillain, bomb goes off, destroys a town of 600 some people, including children, blew up near a school, and the government's basically like, superheroes need to be registered. They need to be basically part of the government. Their identities need to reveal. They need to come in and have training. They're officially weapons, is essentially what it is. And then some of the heroes agree with that, and they're like, yes, absolutely, we need to have them all trained like they would be basically cops. And we need to have their identities done so they can't be doing stuff like vigilante type stuff. And then the other half is like, no, we don't want that because it violates the freedom of what we want to do. That's why lots of them have secret identities so that people can't track down their families or whatever, or they can have a personal life outside of being a constant fighter. They can be like, hey, I don't want to do this. I can take my step away from this. And they would lose that anonymity. And then the other part of it is also they're worried that if the government now is telling them what to do, then the government is controlling their actions and they don't have that free will anymore. They're heroes because they chose to be heroes. They chose to do this. They decide their personal takes on what they think needs to be done. But if they have to listen to the government before they can act, and this half of it came up more in like the MCU was, and the movies was, it's like if the government says, oh, we don't want you, like, oh, there's a war breaking out over in this country, and they're like, hey, we should go help stop this and help save lives, and they'd be like, nah, we don't want you to do that. That's, because they have other reasons for that, and then they're worried that, you may or may not get to do stuff you want because of the government, and, so that's the whole idea. So then the big thing here is you have Iron Man and Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel on the registration side, whereas you had Spider-Woman and Captain America on the anti-registration side. So that's the whole idea of it. So what this expansion does is what's really cool is every other set in Marvel Champions, we've been playing against a villain, trying to perform a scheme, essentially. This is letting us fight against other heroes. So you can play as your hero team, you can play as Iron Man's team, fight off against Captain America, or vice versa. And one thing that's really neat about this is they keep a lot of the cards, most of the card and terminology stuff the exact same. They change villains. Instead of Iron Man, Captain America, they're not called villains, they're called leaders, but they keep all the rest of the stuff the same. They're still scheming, there's still side schemes, there's still, all that stuff. There's still treachery cards. They didn't change all the names of all the cards to heroic sounding stuff to make the game more difficult. It's basically like, nope, it all works the same. So you can mix and match these with anything else. I can be playing as Captain America, and if I really wanted to, I could be adding S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, from the last set that came out, the big box that was the, S.H.I.E.L.D. set. I could be adding Thunderbolts in there from some of them to have them team up with him, or him teaming up with Iron Man, or you can have Iron Man teaming up with, he needs to grab some Sentinels. He's going to, use some Sentinels, and you're going to fight against the X-Men. The only thing there is it does really have the whole theme of, the Civil War part behind it, so it's like later on if you want to be like, again, like this Iron Man X-Men thing, I want to play as X-Men and fight Iron Man, and have it pretend it's part of the X-Men versus Avengers story. You can kind of try and theme it that way, but like his cards and some of the stuff he references are still going to be Civil War themes. But that's no different than you fighting off against Apocalypse and it's the Age of Apocalypse theming, or if you're fighting off against Green Goblin and his stuff is trying to summon Goblin demons. It's always going to have their same thing. So this is really a cool idea. We do get 2 brand new heroes in here. So we're going to do that in part 1 here. We're going to go through the rules, kind of like what's different in this set, what's that. We're going to look at our first 2 heroes, which are Hulkling and Tigra, one for each side. And then in part 2, we'll look over the 4 characters we get a fight against. Just that way it doesn't get too long of a video. The other thing that's also added in here, because you're like, well, how come other sets we get 5 and here we only get 4? Partly because, symmetry. The other thing is because we're also getting a PvP mode. So up till now, generally you are just playing against the villain AI deck that's going off. Now you're going to have a chance to actually play against another player. And I'm not sure off the top of my head how much of that you can mix in with other characters, but I think you should presumably be able to then take this against any other character, but we'll look into that. Alright, so let's hop into this a little bit. Let's see what we got in here. So custom expansions here, so instead of, again, the 4 campaigns, we're going to have our own special things here. So we have leaders. Introducing expansions are placed in place of the villains using the Civil War scenarios. They function exactly the same. Only difference between leaders and villains is players can team up with their chosen leaders in competitive mode. Game rules and card abilities that affect interactive villains also affect leaders the same way. There are a couple of things in here. Towards the end of the book, we'll see where they're going to say, like, if you're playing this mode, the competitive mode, there are going to be some cards that are going to be like, it says do this, and you might have to switch some of the terminology. But they try to keep most of it the same. So we are going to get a couple of things. We're going to get, for registration, we have Iron Man and Captain Marvel decks. For resistance, we have Captain America and Spider-Woman decks. Each one has 4-stage encounter set. Or 4 stages in their own little encounter deck, so like any other villain would have, you'd be playing against. But they have stages 3 and 4 replace 1 and 2. So you place 1 and 2, or you switch to 3 and 4 for hard mode, or expert. They also have 4 basic playing cards that are used in competitive mode only. Another thing that's really cool in here we're going to just see is they have the main schemes. They have 4 stage 1s and 4 stage 2s. This is so that you can mix and match. So like, pre-constructed Captain America comes with a stage 1 and 2, and then like Spider-Woman comes with a 1 and 2. So they each have their own one to start with if you want to play it, but then there's 2 extras of each that are later off in the deck, so that way you can mix and match them a little bit, so you have a variety. So every time you play them, you're not always playing in the exact same scenario. So that's a really cool idea. I have some modular encounters. There's 8 different modular encounters, 4 for each set. Which always have at least 1 minion treachery and side scheme, and then there's a PvP encounter set. Cool. So then how do we create custom scenarios? Basically choose which side you're going to play as. When playing competitive, each team must choose a different side. So each player uses different colors to identify the modular sets. It's kind of like red versus blue. Otherwise, yeah, it's basically just setting it up like any other game. It's like 3 or 4 modular sets. So normally you have a, your first card that would come out. Your first main scheme would say, this is the character you're using, include like level 1, level 2, then include X number of sets in there. Like, you have to include this modular set and this and this. This one doesn't force you to use any specific ones necessarily, but it does mean you have to select at least 3 or 4 modular sets. But you cannot mix them for general concept. Again, once you start playing your own, do whatever the heck you want to do. Copy the standard PvP encounter set. Or standard encounter set, but if you're in PvP, use that one instead. Shuffle it together, make your deck. So it's more or less the same as building any other regular one. And then the main side scheme. Select one of the 4 main ones, select one of the second ones. So set A will always have the same back, and set B will always have the same back, or set 1 and 2, sorry, not A and B. 1 and 2 will always have the same sides, but there's 4 of each. Then the other sides are different. So it's kind of also unique is because during setup, your opponent's not going to know exactly what they're fighting against. And it kind of helps, like, in lengthening the story. It's like, oh, these guys aren't just doing the one thing. They might have mission A, mission B, but they could have this other mission A and this other mission B. Or maybe the first time they're doing this mission, but now they're doing a different mission B. So it kind of makes it a little bit very interesting there. And again, you can also randomly sort them, which is kind of cool. Modular sets included expansion are fully compatible with the rest of Marvel Champions. Modular sets from other products and may be included to customize your scenarios. However, modular sets that don't belong to either registration or existing cannot be used in competitive mode. So that's the only downside about competitive mode, is the way they designed it, or at least the way they have it, is you're only supposed to use stuff from this box. Again, you could try doing other stuff, but there just might be some glitches here and there. But what's neat is because, again, like I said, you could be playing as Captain America, and you could have a S.H.I.E.L.D. set, you could have Hydra agents modular set, but the same way as I could take stuff from this one where, like one set's the Mighty Avengers, the other one's the New Avengers. I could add them into fighting if I'm playing off as against the Green Goblin or something, right? I could add them into that set, or Baron Zemo's controlling Spider-Man or something. So you could have some interesting combinations there. So just playing some custom scenarios if you want to do those. So a couple of things they did have in here. A leader in play is called the enemy leader. Any rule that refers to the villain refers to the enemy leader. Any rule refers to the enemy team refers to the players. Resolve these abilities using the Grim rule. Imagine an opponent would do if it was their choice. Card ability resolves their leader, cannot be resolved. And these cards typically have alternate effects to resolve instead. Do as much as you can. So there might be stuff that says, like, your leader does this, so if you're playing competitive, you get to use that effect. But if you're playing solo or cooperative mode, then it just says do something else. And the same idea there. We're going to have a couple of things there. Pre-constructed decks, I'm not going to go over these too much, but they have the stuff for Iron Man, Captain America, S.H.I.E.L.D. So we have some keywords. We have find. Now, I always like going over these in case you haven't played since the core set. You're picking this up, maybe this is your first big box. So some of these might not be familiar with. When you're instructed to find a card, search the areas where the card could be found. Play area, set aside, deck, discard, and counter. Do not search the victory display. Cards that have been removed from the game, face down counter cards currently dealt to players. Do not search game areas unnecessarily. You know the card can be looked for. So, for example, if it tells you to find you have Captain America, it tells you to find Captain America's shield. If you're playing against him, right? So you have to find Captain America's shield. You know it's going to be in the encounter deck. So there's no reason for you to search any other deck because he's a villain. He's going to be in his encounter deck. Same idea as if I'm playing as Hulkling and it tells me to find one of his shape-shifting cards. I'm only going to search my deck. I'm never going to search the encounter deck. So just find means look to where you know you can find it. You don't get to use that as an excuse to dig through cards and see what other things might be available. We have Hanger X. When a card with Hanger X enters play, plays X threat on that card, just making it a little bit harder. Patrol, while a minion in its patrol is engaged with a player, that player cannot use cards they control to thwart the main scheme, so have to defeat the villains first. Permanent, cannot be defeated. Leave play or have any part of its text box blank except by cards with the same effect. This usually goes for typically hero stuff. They might have a setup card that comes into play. It's like a permanent ability they have. It's just saying you can't erase their permanent abilities. Piercing. Attack the piercing, discards any tough status card before dealing damage. Ranged, ignores the retaliate keyword. Setup, begins into play. Stalwart, cannot be stunned or confused. Steady, can have an additional stunned or confused card before they're affected by it. Teamwork. After a minion with teamwork enters play, engage the player if there's at least one other minion that shares a specified trait. That minion just enters, activates against the player is engaged with. So it says, example, Jason is engaged with Spider-Man, and Emily reveals and engages Vulcan, who has teamwork with Avenger. Because Spider-Man also has Avenger, Vulcan activates against Emily. Yeah, it's a very interesting effect. A Victory X card of Victory X is defeated, place it in a victory pile instead of its owner's discard, just basically removes it from play. And then Villainous, when a minion of the Villainous activates, give it a face down boost card, so basically just more powerful. Amplify icon increases the number of boost icons during the enemy activation, plays an additional one for each amplify icon, and then alternate and counterbacks. Practically is a variation on a standard counterback. Is to differentiate these cards from other player cards of the same type, as these rules prevent them from entering a deck, discard, or player's hand. I don't know specifically which ones. Yeah, so they're gonna be like this as opposed to your standard back. They're gonna have like an orange back on there. And what's this for? This is for a special Captain Marvel card. Just showing that it's not gonna ever get mixed into the deck. Or a player's hand. Then there's a little Civil War storyline that, blah blah blah, they go into there, then they fight. I love this part here where then we have two other characters added, Vision and She-Hulk. Are the other two they're showing because, so this is competitive mode, so we jump to this last page. Continue registration versus resistance conflict in a Synthizoid Smackdown scenario pack. This is actually a scenario pack where we get to add those two as the two different villain sides we did a fight as. So that's pretty cool. Or leaders, I guess, rather. Then just a quick overview of competitive mode. I'm not going to dive into all the specifics of this, but basically, ideally, what you're going to do is you're going to be playing a game. You're going to be playing a game against the opponent's villain deck versus that. So, like, for example, resistance side, I am playing, player 1's playing Hulkling, player 2's playing Spider-Man, and then their leaders are teaming up with Iron Man. So then on their turn, resistance team is going to go, they're going to take their turn, play Hulkling Spider-Man. Then we're going to jump over to the other side. We're going to be playing Tigra and Captain Marvel. So they're going to be playing their side. And then it's going to jump back to the resistance side, but now they're going to play Iron Man as if the villain was taking their turn. Then it jumps back to Captain America taking his turn. And then it goes to basically player, then it's leader. And then it goes back and forth. That's what you're doing. So the idea, though, is what you can kind of get to do is now you just set up your deck to play as a team, or if you're playing one player versus the other team, 1v1, you set up the encounter deck to fight off against the opponent, which is a little neat idea. So then as my player's resistance, I am trying to defeat the enemy leader, Captain America, or stop his side scheme from activating, or I have to defeat the other two players. So we have that. So it says, whichever team defeats the enemy leader wins first, whichever team leader completes his main scheme first wins, or whichever team leader defeats all their opponent's identities first. Game designed until both sides are playing equal number of turns. If the registration team is the first to lose the game, either by the enemy completed scheme or having each player defeated, the game will continue through the end of the resistance team's next phase. If they also lose, then you have a tie game. If the registration team is defeated during the hero phase, the resistance leader does not replay minions on the table, so it can still be targeted by resistance players' effects. So basically that's what you're doing, is you're just trying to, registration goes, resistance goes, registration villain, resistance villain. Some other unique abilities and things to look at is, unique rule only applies to cards on your teammate player's cards. Unique enemy cards have no impact on the field. Players can still not use a hero if the same title is used as their leader. For example, if the registration team chooses Iron Man, neither player on the registration can use Iron Man hero for the game. Also means you cannot use them as an ally. Counter cards and leaders in counter deck set refer to by the leader by its title only refer to the leader, not the ally or hero version. For example, a Captain America encounter card says attached to Captain America only refers to him and not the allies. Abilities refer to the enemy leader, refer to the leader you are fighting. Abilities referring to the enemy team, refer to the players on the team you are playing against. Abilities refer to the enemy or enemies, refer to the leader's side you are fighting, and any minions on your side of the table. It does not refer to your opponent's allies or identities. So if it says enemies, you're targeting their leader. So if I'm player A, I'm registration, and I'm attacking Iron Man's, or sorry, I'm registration, yeah, I'm attacking Captain America's side, anti-registration. I can only, as my heroes, I can only be attacking the villain I'm fighting against. And the same idea as when you're playing as Iron Man as the villain, he can only attack the heroes. So you can't be attacking the other characters. When the enemy leader attacks you, some cards have the ability to cause the enemy leader to attack your leader. You got a guard keyword, and player can declare defender. So you can still help defend them. And there's also leader-specific basic cards that are played during this, which we'll see later. There's a tiebreaker thing. Okay, cool. And then we have our Hulkling protection and Tigra aggressive. So yeah, pretty simple there. What happens in competitive mode if the enemy leader has the same card talisman? It does not matter if the enemy leader is yours. This includes your leader, but not any minions in your leader encounter deck. To my point, I have to choose the same number of modular sets. Each team builds something independent of each other. So that's kind of a neat idea, too, for that. Because that way you could be like, I'm a little bit newer to the game, this other person's an expert. You could add more or less cards into their deck, or make it a little bit easier or harder for each other. You still shuffle obligations into the encounter deck. Yep, definitely. If the leader attacks Captain Marvel, that's special abilities. I'm not worried as much about that. Yeah, so that's very simple. So that's actually pretty cool. Alright, so that's what we're going to hop into. Sorry for the long intro there, but, let's actually, we're going to split this up. I did say we're going to do a second video. We're going to do a part 2 with, since this took longer than I thought it was. Go part 2 with just the heroes, and we'll do part 3 with just the villains. Just so this doesn't take a super long time. So check back in with part 2. Bye.